it. Don't break the rest, you won't make it. I don't even care where this road leads. All I know is when my heart is gone with a tree.
Can you hear me?
Boom shagalaka. Yo, Katta, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh man, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good in yourself.
I'm not too bad, not too bad. Thanks for coming on to do this, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to join. What's going on?
Bro, nothing much. You know, I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to get you down here, talk about what you do. I know you're a music producer, director, amongst many other things, man. Seems like you're a jack of many trades. But bro, let me just do a quick introduction. And I mean, perhaps you can introduce yourself. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that you do that I don't know too much about. So, but before I get into that, just want to let everyone know you are tuning into the Crucial Journey podcast. Boom shagalaka. It is your boy, the esoteric noetic. That's also what I go as. Also the chocolate Nubian. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have what do I call you, man? Katta? That's your alias, right?
That's correct.
You want me to? I'll go with Katta. It's like a hip hop artist, man. All right, so tell me about yourself, man. What is it that you do?
When I'm not working, like the usual job.
Just in general, how do I define Katta? What is this magnificent hip hop artist that is a jack of many trades? What is Katta?
Photographer, director, and then I like to journey into lots of other different things. I don't like to sit in one place.
Okay, so fundamentally, you're a director. You make music videos. That much I know, and that's been your main focus for the last while.
Yeah, I've been doing that. Been making short films and stop motion animation since I was like 8 or 9. So I just kept going from there, and then started doing a lot more photography. Did a few jobs for different companies. It's just some product stuff for hairdressers and stuff like that. Then I've also worked on lots of random small events, like small. And
cool, man. Because we met on set, just to give everyone a heads up. So we met just about a month ago on set, doing some commercial or something or other, and we have a lot of common interests. You're a musician, a director. I think you make beats, and also you're a director. Didn't know you. I mean, I thought you make music videos, which I know you do. But you also make short films. I mean, it seems like you're like a full-fledged director, man. Have you made any films as of late? What's been your main focus in terms of the filmmaking recently?
Main focus at the moment is just music videos and photography. Okay. And just dabble in music because they all kind of complement each other. Like the music really helps the filmmaking and vice versa. And I'm slowly getting back into making short films. There's a few ideas I'm trying to get out, and hopefully I can get that out soon because got a few.
So I'd imagine, I mean, is the business, is it busy at the moment as far as people wanting to make music videos? I mean, I imagine there's a lot of wannabe superstars out there, you know, spending so much time at home wanting to like put something together. I know at least a couple of people that have put out albums just throughout these lockdowns, because it's like, what else are you going to do? I'm guessing that's giving you a lot of business. What's that been like? Has there been much work since these lockdowns?
So every time there's a lockdown, it kind of like stops for a bit, and then after a week or two, you always have new people calling and looking for like people to work with, because it's hard being an artist right now. It's not finding jobs, especially for the live music industry. Like the first time I've gone to a gig is probably almost a year and a half, and that was on Thursday, I think Friday.
Tell me about it. Preach, brother. I am going through the same thing. I mean, kind of fortunately for me, I haven't really been in a position to do a lot of like live gigs just over the last going a year now, as I've had like this vocal condition. But I've been doing, you know, a few other like events and stuff, and it's kind of reaching the point now where I want to be doing a lot more performances because I'm ready to. But obviously, we're in these lockdowns, and I was just imagining with the kind of work you're doing, obviously, you need to be out making music videos. You can't exactly make music videos online, right? It's not the kind of industry that is catered towards that. So a lot of artists, I'm sure, are wanting to book people like you when the lockdowns are no longer in progress, you know? So I'm guessing now, I'm not even sure if we're in lockdowns. I never really keep track of this stuff, but I'm guessing now we're not in lockdowns, and you must be getting
we're in this weird limbo of lockdown almost.
It is this weird limbo. I feel like at the moment, the entire world is going through this limbo where, well, at least in Australia, Canada, the United States, where you're in lockdown, then you're not, but there's always some kind of restriction mask on indoors, outdoors.
No
In,
homes,
yeah,
public.
in the UK, my friend was telling me, King Peter the Viral, he's got a big YouTube channel that talks about a lot of the stuff that's going on, was telling me that they're actually not able to, they weren't able to hug in the UK, but now, oh, thank God, they're actually able to hug each other. And there are all these other restrictions, like you can't enter nightclubs unless, of course, you've gotten what I call the boom shakalaka, the shot. And there are all these crazy restrictions that are in place at the moment, man, which are making life kind of tricky for many of us artists that want to go out there. So,
Definitely.
have you dealt with the whole thing? I mean, do you obviously you spend a lot of time making beats as well, so you keep yourself busy there. But has that kind of stuffed up your whole feng shui when it comes to your artistic kind of like stride?
Kind of. With being having hands on camera, that has like just being able to go out and film something with even friends. Occasionally, they'll message me and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? Just want a photo shoot or just like a minute video." So that doesn't happen as much as it anymore because it's just really hard to plan. I was meant to do something last week with meetings and everything, organizing, doing some pre-prep for some videos, but we couldn't do it because we couldn't catch up. So hopefully we can do it tomorrow. So it's one of those things like you always got to
Yeah,
be on your toes and
there's a lot
be
of
ready to
booking.
adapt to everything.
Sure, there's a lot of booking and canceling. Like I'm finding people are really apprehensive setting themselves to anything now because just at the drop of a hat, it could all be canceled. You know, like I'm a little reluctant booking gigs, or and I know a lot of people have been in this situation where they've created events. You know, they've had tours, and then of course they've had to cancel it. So it's all kind of up in the air at the moment, man. You know, but yeah, I guess you kind of have to acclimate to this new world that we're in, man.
Yeah.
One of the themes that I've been talking about a lot recently, man, because it's kind of hard not to have your mind focused on this, just to give you a bit of a backstory in regards to my podcast. Like I talk about a whole bunch of conspiracy theories, societal issues, music, spirituality, you know, technology. But the main focus just as of late over the last year, as you'd imagine, has been everything going on with these lockdowns, with the mandatory restrictions, with the boom shakalakas, as I like to say. And I say that because YouTube is so freaking stringent when it comes to talking about this shit, man. You can't even say anything remotely controversial about this stuff. Otherwise, like I literally received another strike on YouTube, just so that you know. So I got to be real careful now. I can't put anything up for 2 weeks, and if I get another strike, all over Red Rover. So I'm kind of gonna.
I'll make sure I also
Yeah,
check what
well,
I
you know,
say.
I'm gonna put this on, and I haven't like a backup channel, but one of the things I really wanted to get into, you know, because one of the things that perked my interest when I was talking to you was you mentioned like you started doing some work booking people in for the boom shakalaka, and
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of mystique in regards to what's going on with that. I think regardless of where you are in the world, you know, because I mean in terms of how many people actually want to get this thing, I think there's a bit of like there's a lot of media BS because on one hand the media's saying, oh look, everyone wants this thing, you know, it's like winning the lotto. But I think there are a lot of people that are apprehensive about getting the shot because of, you know, X, Y, and Z, which we can get into. But I mean, personally, just for YouTube, I think the shot is absolutely amazing. And I think everyone, yeah, can get this thing if they want to. but one of the things that really kind of like made my ears perk was when not this lockdown, but I think the last time we had a lockdown, one of the reasons that you could leave your home was to actually go and get a vaccination. And it's kind of like, ooh, strangely enough, as you would imagine, the uptake of people getting the vaccine went up tremendously. So it almost seems to me as if, well, I'm not going to say because this is YouTube, but conveniently, a lot of people are obviously getting these shots due to the lockdowns. And well, I guess just in terms of what you're doing in terms of booking appointments, do you want to tell us a bit about that and what the uptake has been ever since well these lockdowns? And I guess yeah, what's going on there, man? Like in terms, well, first of all, what is it that you were doing or you have been doing? If I presume correctly, you're still working in this area, organizing.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
So pretty much, yeah. I just book for people if they want it.
Okay.
So yeah, just give them that option if they do, and just trying to make it from my. I'm kind of in the middle with it all. I feel like we do need it, but we don't, because if both sides are wrong, then we're kind of food.
Sure.
So
I mean,
it's
I
like
hear
a
what you're
testing
saying.
ground.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm on the same page. Like, if people want to take that stuff, I mean, regardless of, all the information, I think if people want to, that's all good and well.
Yeah.
But I think it's a tricky situation because we're essentially being coerced to. It's like, if you don't take it, you can't do X and Y. You can't perform at these venues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess the other issue is, I mean, a lot of people want to know, obviously, the risks, which I'm not going to get into. I mean, there's this whole thing about informed consent when it comes to taking any kind of medical treatment, let alone an experimental boom shakalaka. But I guess one of the things that kind of perked my interest when I was talking to you last time was, you were telling me about how a lot of people have questions in regards to this thing, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but what was it, the Astra Z shot that you were offering to people, or was it, because I know the Pfizer has just come in, and I think at a point,
So we do both.
oh, you do both, all right, because the
Yeah.
Pfizer has recently been brought into Australia, whereas initially we were going with the Astra Z. And what's interesting is, on one hand, they were essentially touting one story that, this thing is very, very, whatever it was, and then they kind of did a 180 and said, oh, actually, if memory serves me, they were a little apprehensive about certain things in terms of blood clots and so forth. At least this is what the officials are saying in Australia. And as a result, it's not offered to everyone. But what's the lowdown on the AstraZeneca, and like which one? You mentioned you recommend both, yeah?
Me personally, I would probably recommend the Pfizer. For it seems like, from my point of view, it does seem like anybody from 40 up, it's the best to take the AstraZeneca. But the older you get, the better the AstraZeneca is, just because, I don't know, it just kind of seems like that 40 to 50, there has been some issues, just from what I can see. So the Pfizer one, I haven't seen so much. Like, I haven't really see about any blood clots or stuff like that. I haven't seen it with
Okay.
Pfizer.
Now, obviously,
But
I have to
AstraZeneca
be.
one, it does seem like the older you get, the more stuff you can get out of it, at least. And
Sure.
threatening towards you.
Sure. Now, of course, I want to preface all this by saying that I'm no medical expert, and I presume you're not either. So we're just obviously just having two people having a conversation in regards to this. Obviously, very wary of you two. But in terms of yeah, in terms of the risks, I mean, you mentioning that the older you are, the better off you are taking the Astra Z shot. I mean, I'm sure there have to be, because someone like me, I would ask you, if I was an old man, I was concerned, I wanted to take the shot, I would want to understand, like, it's not enough for someone just to tell me that something is safe, right? Like, I want to know, why is it that you think this is safe? And this is one of the things that I feel like it doesn't really get addressed. I mean, you're telling me that I would be better off if I was older, perhaps going with the Astra Z. Now, is there any kind of like rationale for that? I mean, other than just your observational, it seems this is probably better if you're older.
For me, like I said, it's observation for me. There's only so much information, because they give us daily updates, or every 2 days we get new information about everything. So yeah, from what I can see is that I feel like, yeah, me personally, I think they jumped into the AstraZeneca a bit too quick with the younger people. But now I think you've got to iron out some kinks sometimes, and it kind of seems like I don't know, to me personally, it seems like the government's freaking out a bit because they don't know. They're desperate to make sure the people are safe, but in the way they're handling it, they kind of just, we're a test ground for both.
Sure.
For both, we're a test ground for not having it and for having it, and for the different types.
Sure.
If that makes any sense.
So from what you're telling me, you get updates essentially on the, correct me if I'm wrong, but more or less the effectiveness of these different boom shakalakas. And based off of this information, like you have some kind of like vibe as to what you think is probably going to be the most efficacious for different groups and so forth. Is the information that you're getting, like, is this based off of like, you're obviously familiar with VAERS, right? VAERS, it's like a reporting agency that basically reports the amount of people that have, well, bearing in mind, these are just reports. Everyone, these are just reports. I'm not making any claims here, but they report the amount of people that have died after having whatever, boom shakalaka. Do you guys get updates on that information?
Not really, but I do know some people just personally in the medical field who do occasionally get more information than the average person that would work for the company that I work for. So there
Sure.
is things like that's why I'm like AstraZeneca does seem from the numbers and stuff like that I hear from hospitals and stuff like that, it does seem the older you are for the AstraZeneca, it is better.
Sure. Now, whereas I realize that you may obviously, like in your position, you wouldn't necessarily be able to explain the science as to why something is effective and or not effective. But if let's say someone was considering taking this shot and they wanted to know more about the science, I mean, because it's one thing for your politicians to tell you it's safe, it's been trial tested, which of course it is. I'm not doubting that it is not any of these things. But when people want to understand the science that has actually brought this finding, I mean, do you refer them to anyone or anything? Like if people have questions, I mean, from what I understand, they're told to see their GP. And from what I also understand, a lot of the times the GPs aren't always clued on in regards to the science about, well, all the latest reports and whatnot. I mean, is there any like do you guys offer any sources for people to check up other than perhaps referring them to the GP? I mean, I don't want to assume either. What is the general process if people have questions? Like if I was asking you, what are the statistics in regards to the people that have, let's say, had adverse reactions, if they've had any from the vaccine and so forth, and where can I see the science that has led to this result? What do you typically say to the customers there?
So with that, we will either say check out your GP because we're not medical experts. We're just like everyday person just helping with bookings out. So the information that we get is mostly about the process of receiving everything
Sure.
and what like with the AstraZeneca, they do say if you want the AstraZeneca and you're under 40, you have to go see your GP and get a special referral. If I remember that correctly.
Okay.
So most of
Yeah.
the information you need to get through the GP, and there is, I think, some information at the health.gov.org website. But yeah, I think even with that, I don't think they're sure. I'm not gonna lie. So I think they rather send you off to a medical expert, but I don't even think they get information quick enough because there's
Sure.
so much information. It's always changing every day. So I
Sure.
think that's the issue.
I feel like the
But
entire thing kind of works off of this top-down hierarchical structure where it's only the very few people that are on top that understand what's going on. Because I've worked in an organization. Anyone that's worked in a business understands the hierarchical structure of things, and it's like it's very rare that someone's gonna, like someone like you in your position. Understandably, you're not going to understand everything that's going on. Like you know, okay, here booking appointments. Then there are people that are perhaps higher up than you, like perhaps your managers or something that might know a bit more about it. Then those people won't know as much as the people above them that understand perhaps the science, you know, the scientific establishment and so forth. But I guess one of the issues is if people really want to, like I'm the kind of person, I'm not gonna do anything unless I know what I'm getting myself into. Like it's not enough for me to say, have someone tell me that something is a good idea, you know? Like if you gave me some food and said, hey man, this is great, have it, you know? Like I'm a real picky eater, you know? So I'm like, starters, I'm going to be like, well, what's in that? You know, well, hey bro, you realize
I'm
that
the same.
first of all, I don't eat meat and I'm allergic to X and Y. So it's like, bro, like I want to know what's in that, you know? And I feel like this is one of these topics where, and these are just my thoughts here. A lot of people don't really do the due diligence, try to find out what's in this stuff. I mean, I would be confident saying that most GPs, this is just my opinion once again, would probably not know the ingredients to what is in your typical boom shakalaka, whether it was the Johnson & Johnson or the AstraZeneca or the Pfizer. And the thing is, they're not all the same. There are, I don't want to get into the details of this, but obviously different companies, different processes. Obviously, there's mRNA technology within the Pfizer and so forth. But the point is, I guess for someone like myself, or someone much older that is actually considering taking this thing, you kind of have to rely on what you're being told by the.
It's all trust.
It's all trust.
Yeah.
And like in regards to what you're doing, I mean, you mentioned you're obviously booking appointments. Are you calling people up to try to get them to come into the? Also, is it kind of like is it almost like a sales thing, or are people calling you up to get this thing?
90% people call me up, but if let's say you've got your first dose, then we'll call you up to make sure, hey, when do you want your second one? If it comes to close to the day with all the information that they've given us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only time that I know of is when we call out is to find out when your second one is, or if you did call up to get your first one, we'll call you back. But
Oh, I
I
see.
don't think we'll just call you up to say, hey, you're supposed to have this. There's none of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So once you've had your first, then you guys will actually step out and call people up. Because my concern was, I mean, one of my friends, in fact, this is a common thing that's taking place. I mean, people are getting phone calls to receive their jab. You know, people in the United States, I mean, people are actually marketing, like going into your homes and asking people, well, telling people, you know, like, why haven't you gotten your jab? Because, you know, we got to get everyone taking this thing. Apparently, that's the narrative, right? And to me, it almost seems like marketing, purely from the sense that, I mean, if someone was coming to my house and asking me to take, you know, whatever it was, you know, whether it was like some mango. Now, personally, I love mangoes. I don't have a problem with that kind of stuff. But if I hadn't asked for mangoes, I hadn't expressed that I wanted this stuff, but I was constantly seeing advertisement for mangoes. People were calling me up to take mangoes, come into my house to take mangoes. One could almost call that harassment.
You'll take.
No, but yeah, even then,
it's
but
like,
more the point I was trying to make.
Harassing,
yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that it's almost like harassment, you know. And whereas I know that may not be taking place in terms of like what you guys are doing, but in terms of like the push, because they had in the UK, like I think I showed you the call. One of my friends, actually King Peter, the YouTuber, got called by I think it's some worker for the NHS or something like that, essentially to book an appointment. And these people, this guy was trying to explain to him why he needs to get the shot. Now, Peter is basically in this like category, from what I understand, that is at very low risk. Like he's in his early 20s, and like he was trying. Basically, you got to watch I think you've seen the video, so people that haven't, they can check it out. But essentially, he ended up schooling the guy on whether or not it was a good idea to take this thing based on this age category, because this guy is essentially just marketing this thing, not putting into consideration whether or not it may be suitable for him. And I think one of the concerns a lot of people have, well, at least I have, is that there is so much marketing towards this thing in terms of putting this back in the realm of informed consent, at least letting people know their information. Because whereas it may not be, like in Australia, that stuff isn't being done as far as people coming to your doorstep, but I think that may be happening very soon. And I think the fact that we're seeing this push where you can't even talk about this stuff on social media unless you're saying something positive in regards to this. To me, it seems almost as if, in fact, not almost, it does seem as if there is a concerted effort to market. And it happens in every area of life, obviously, you know, whether it's sex, music. I mean, I'm in the showbiz. I'm constantly like I'm plugging myself, you know, in conversations with like, bro, you should check out my Spotify, you know. So I guess it's understandable that it takes place also within the realm of the boom shakalaka. But what are your thoughts on everything that's going on? I mean, do you feel as if people are having this stuff marketed to them, or I mean, what's your general synopsis on what's going on?
What I've noticed in Australia, like I said, they talk about it, but they don't push it as much. Where I've seen America, I don't know if it's true. It was like yesterday, they said that the military might be involved to kind of encourage people to take it.
Yeah.
So it was a quick article that I read, so I'm not sure. I need to check on the facts on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of seems like America and the UK and a few other places are really like they're getting money out of the companies. I think Johnson & Johnson is from America. I might be wrong.
Well, in regards to Australia,
money out of it.
Sure. In Sydney, at least, I just came across a report. This is just a couple of days ago. They're actually pushing towards having the military assist in administering the boom shakalakas. So we're actually seeing exactly the same thing happen here. And I mean, in terms of, I mean, this is kind of moving into the realm of just how all this works within a political, pharmaceutical industry kind of sense. Well, essentially, our governments are obviously paying for the vaccines, and they're doing that through our tax dollars. And
we're paying for it.
Yeah, this happens regardless of whether you are in the UK, you were in the Canada, United States, or Australia. And also, your GP and these companies are indemnified from liability. So that means, and these are just facts. I mean, these are undisputable, unless, of course, there's been some recent update. You know, Bill Gates has decided to say, "Oh, look, you know what? We're going to make all of these people, yeah, liable for suits and whatnot." But fundamentally, yeah, if in the God forbid something does happen to you, then basically there's no recourse. I mean, you can't sue your GP and you can't sue the government. And I think, understandably, that would make some people apprehensive. But for some reason, it's something that doesn't even get spoken about. Like I know this because the people that have been speaking about these, just raising these concerns, people like Craig Kelly, he's I think he was a past MP, I think he still is. But also Pauline Hanson, she's been one of these people that's just been speaking very openly, you know, just not even talking about the science of this, just, you know, common sense stuff. Like, you know, I don't want to have to be forced to take this thing if I want to travel, this kind of stuff. And even these issues are considered taboo. So, yeah, I guess moving outside of the whole science realm, just in terms of the restrictions and lockdowns, I mean, first of all, are you aware of some of the things that are being implemented in terms of people being able to travel, and like the restrictions that have been implemented in order to move around? Like, are you aware of that kind of stuff?
Yes, I know they want to bring it in for traveling. Like I want to go back. I'm from South Africa, so I want to go back and visit my family. There's such complications doing that.
Yeah,
I kind of understand why they want people to, if you want to travel or do certain things, um, telling you they have to get it, because you don't want Australia to be the reason why another country got messed up because they didn't follow the procedures or they didn't take all safety precautions. But it is a bit of a tricky, slippery thing where I feel like we need both. We need people who aren't and people who are, just so we can keep that balance. Does that make sense? So
sure.
they
I
don't
mean,
have that power over.
yeah,
Sorry, because the
I hear
signal
what you're
keeps
saying.
just cut out there for a second. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this is typically what I hear, you know, from the moderate, you know, that we need to have some kind of balanced, proportionate response to this kind of stuff. And my attitude is that comes through the implementation of choice, like freedom. Like I am perfectly happy having certain airlines that require you to actually have a vaccine if you want to travel, but then other airlines that don't want to administer this to also not make this compulsory, you know. But what the government has essentially been doing is enforcing all of this stuff, essentially coercing certain companies to go ahead with this stuff. And, you know, granted, whereas I understand there are people that are frustrated either way. There are people that are angry at the very idea that businesses are requiring people to undergo vaccination, you know, in order to enter the stores or fly their airlines. But if there was this element of choice, then people could make the decision for themselves. And essentially you would allow the market to decide what's going to be effective, you know, because at the end of the day, I think we all have different interests. We all may be in different situations, and we all understandably should be able to take different risks, you know. But when there's this one size fits all approach, and the government says that because of what might happen, we're not going to allow anyone to leave the country unless they've been vaccinated, you know, because as you're saying, there's certain countries that are going to be put at risk if you can come into this country without being vaccinated and so forth. Well, let those individuals, let those countries, whatever, make the decision, or bring it back to the individual level, you know. But I feel like we're playing this game, this democratic game, where theoretically we're allowing the government to make this decision for everyone, and we're saying the government is representative of the people, when in actuality, I think it's very different. A lot of people, I would actually say the majority, are not in line with mandating any of these vaccines, you know. And it's one thing to have a push to try to encourage people to do that kind of stuff, you know. But I think the real issue to me is forcing this stuff, and that's what we're seeing take place. Because yeah,
The
what
forcing, we definitely, it needs to be a choice. I think, you know, they need both options because we don't know, we don't know where the boom's gonna go if they do take it in 10 years from now, and we don't know where it's gonna go if we don't take it. Like we kind of do, but we don't. Like it's still very fresh,
sure. But
and we do need both. I think at the moment there's so much infighting with, like, even politics. There's, if the one person's not on your side, then there's no communication anymore. It's just yelling. And we need to get back to making it your choice. If you don't want it, then you don't have to. And if you do want it, that's your choice. There shouldn't be. You didn't get it. You're gonna it's causing conflict by saying that you have to have it and pushing you to have it, and then people who don't want it, and it's gonna split the people up.
Well, no doubt. I think over the last year or two, we've definitely seen more division within the population than we've seen in throughout my entire time here. You know, I mean, it's funny because the politicians push this whole narrative that we're all together, but I think, I mean, if the protests just a week ago or anything to judge by, there are a lot of angry people because they're both sides to this argument. There's the what if brigade that are saying, you know, that this thing could be so devastating, you know, it could kill many, many people and so forth, you know, and they're always dealing in terms of like what might happen. Because if you have a look at Australia, if we're looking at reality, I mean, the amount of deaths that we've had in Australia has been very minimal that have been actually attributed to COVID-19. So, I mean, in terms of what we
higher than the COVID.
Sorry?
During this period, I think there's more suicides during this period.
It would not surprise me one bit.
Than COVID itself.
Yeah, the last time, I don't want to use statistics, but the last time I checked, which was less than a month ago, and we were still hovering around 1,000 as just a general ballpark, but you know, give or take, you know, a few hundred or something like that. But if you have a look at previous years in terms of flu deaths and so forth, I mean, there have been years, and this is not debatable where that's actually been higher, but that's the main issue, the main argument I'm hearing from the people that are obviously in favor of the restrictions is that, you know, this could be a lot worse, could be a lot serious and so forth. And we know we've saved millions of lives by bringing about the vaccines, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the argument. If I was to steelman the argument of the people that are in favor of restrictions, no choice, that kind of stuff, it's in order to prevent all this stuff, like the worst case scenario, which is like thousands upon thousands of people dying and, you know, so forth. But the other camp, from my opinion, and this is actually what's happening. I mean, there are people that are losing their livelihood and their lives. I mean, there are people that are committing suicide. There are people that are not able to go out and do what they love doing. I mean, there's this classic story. I think this took place in the UK of an older woman. She was very elderly, was very concerned about catching this virus, right? So she spent the last, I don't know how many months it was, like almost a year, locked up in her home because she didn't want to catch this thing. And then she recently decided to leave her home because she felt safe. And I don't know the exact details, but essentially, not, you know, just a day or so after stepping out of her home, horrible, but she got run over by a car. And that, to me, it displays it speaks for itself. I mean, imagine depriving yourself from life because of what might happen, and then life happens. Like, there are all of these things that could hit you, metaphorically speaking, in life, you know. But we're playing this game where we're essentially suffocating people's life, where there are people that are not able to see their dying fathers. You know, I mean, I essentially was in this situation not that long ago because of what might happen. And then you move into this world, because this is me still manning the argument of the people that are very much pro, I want my freedom. You know, it's my rights brigade, as I've heard some politicians say. You're essentially depriving people of being able to live their lives, like go out and perform, go out and, I mean, there are people that are thriving in there. I mean, I'm in my prime. I want to go out, meet women, and you're saying, oh, you can't do this kind of stuff because what might happen, when right now we're actually seeing stuff happen. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? So it's kind of like one camp is playing the what if game, and the other camp is playing the, well, this is happening game, and I'm not happy with what is happening right now. And because I think most of science wants to deal in the heuristic models and government is all based off of risk analysis. Essentially, you're trying to mitigate problems. Therefore, they're willing to deprive people of their rights, essentially, in order to achieve goals. And this is getting a little philosophical, but I think that's what we're dealing with here. Like two different camps that are very much, one being concerned about what if, and the other being concerned about what's happening. But in terms of like your concerns, I mean, you've kind of already illustrated some of them. Like, you just want people to, I guess, I feel like you've alluded to this, people not having choice. But what are your biggest concerns in terms of how this might affect your life, in terms of whether it's the restrictions or whether it's people not getting boom shakalaka, so to speak? What are the biggest concerns you have?
Biggest concerns personally is seeing family and yeah, having that freedom of going out. Like, I got to see my mum the first time for like 5 minutes at a restaurant down the road because she lives in Canberra in like the last 6 months
Last 6 months.
or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it does put pressure onto people. Yeah, so yeah, seeing family and stuff like even my sister, it's the first time I saw my sister in about a year and a half. She was there as well, and it's just due to lockdowns and stuff like that. So, sorry, can you repeat the question? I just cut
No,
out
it's
there.
just the biggest concerns. I mean, you were answering it right there. Just the biggest concerns that you have in terms of what's going on. Obviously, you're concerned about not being able to see your family, which I think is the biggest concern. I mean, this is what it always comes down to with my friends, like, and my mom. My mom's like, she's not exactly pro any kind of drugs for that matter, but she's like, I have to see my mom. I always do a silly impersonation of my mom, but yeah, she's basically saying, if she has to see a mom and she's willing to, if she has to take this thing in order to travel, she's going to do that. One of my closest friends, he's like, look, man, like, yeah, he's full on like in this conspiracy world with me, but he's like, look, man, I love traveling. If I got to take this thing to travel, I'm traveling. So I think a lot of people in your boat, I don't want to be deprived of being able to live my life, seeing my friends and my family, and that's understandable. But let me ask you this question, because that is the default way of thinking, right? My biggest concern is what happens if the government gets the idea that it can pull this lockdown anytime it wants. Like, it can essentially deprive you of being able to leave your home, which they're doing on some level, deprive you of being able, like, requiring you to get not just the first shot, because first it was a mask. Actually, first it was just a couple of weeks to flatten the curve, then a mask, and then obviously lockdown, stay at home, and then just one shot, and now you got your booster shot. And this is all conspiracy, but I don't think it requires much theory. I think conspiracy theories are just spoilers, spoiler alert, people. I think what we're going to start seeing is people requiring to take a first, second, and third shot to do X, Y, and Z. And anytime you get money, businesses involved in anything for that matter, and this is not a criticism of the pharmaceutical industry. This is just a criticism of business. Anytime there are motivations to make money, that's gonna sometimes obfuscate whether or not it is you're doing something in the best interest of people. And when there is like a concerted effort to have people have this first, second, third jab and so forth, and then the government is coercing people to do this, essentially restricting them, my concern is, well, is this the new normal? Is this like anytime I want to do anything, I got to get the government's permission? Because I was pitching this to my friend a while ago. I think in a couple of 100 years from now, like, if this continues, like, we're going to start seeing lockdowns on every aspect of life. Like, if you wanted to go out of your home, you need some kind of social credit card, and you need to have been a good citizen, need to have had all your up-to-date booster shots. If you want to perhaps leave the planet, you can't leave the planet unless there are lockdowns taking place, restrictions in every area of life. And more importantly, we're dealing in danger. I mean, historically, we're dealing in very dangerous territory when the government tells you how to live your life and starts regulating what you put in your own body. So that's kind of how I mean, that's it. Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is, I feel like some of the governments got lucky. They saw an opportunity and they're like, wait, we can control. I do believe that.
So do
but I
I.
also believe certain countries are just freaking out. They don't know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
they're just sticking with everyone else because they know if they don't, long term, they get screwed over. But I feel like America and even somewhat Australia, definitely, they're seeing this as an opportunity.
Definitely. I mean,
depending on where it came from or whatever, it's definitely, they're taking it.
Sure. I mean, you mentioned you're from South
Okay.
Africa. I'm curious as to how they've been handling things there, because I mean, last time I checked, they're doing the whole restriction thing as well. But the interesting thing there is they've gone through the whole apartheid regime. We've seen firsthand what happens to a country when you start having one set of laws for a group of people and then another set of laws for another group of people. And where is apartheid? That was based off of discrimination on race, which grosses a lot of people out, I think, now in 21st century. But I think we're seeing the same thing implemented, but on a different metric. Now it's been done on whether or not you had your most up to date boom shakalaka shot. It's like, oh, you're unworthy, and you have a look at history play itself. The same stuff that took place in the 1930s, and I hate making reference to this because it's so cliche. Everyone wants to use the Nazi example, but you actually have a look at the things that have emerged over the last few months, and uh, they're so parallel to what took place in the 1930s. Within 6 years, essentially, all the laws that were implemented by Hitler in order to separate the different people, the Jews needing to wear a yellow badge of some sort to distinguish, the clean from the unclean, and being round in having all kinds of restrictions put on them. Couldn't go to restaurants, couldn't go to cinemas, couldn't go to X and Y, same kind of restrictions. And then to the point where, they've been put into concentration camps, right? And then finally, the point where everyone says, oh, that's gross, they're actually been killed. And whereas a lot of people see the comparison as being unfair, I think, in all sincerity, I think it's unbelievably, frighteningly similar in regards to what's going on, because we're seeing exactly the same kind of laws implemented. The only thing is, one is dealing in the realm of discrimination based off of your race, and the other is dealing in the realm of discrimination based off of your Vaxx status. And the same argument, it comes down to, it's for your safety. And this was the mantra of the Nazis. It is for your safety. So I guess bringing this back to people like us. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you've obviously, for the last while, you've mainly been doing stuff related to directing, which you're still doing. But I'm guessing this has probably led you to have to look at other avenues for income, right? Because I know I've definitely been affected in terms of like, oh, well, I can't do what I want right now, so I'm gonna have to find other stuff, do perhaps like a corporate kind of like job, because I can't go out and perform. I mean, at the heart of this is affecting what we want to do as far as our careers, right? Because I mean, the decision that you made, essentially, becoming someone that books. I mean, I know you're only doing this part time or something like that, but was that decision influenced by you not having as many opportunities in the performing arts realm, doing what you love doing, like you making the decision to be a booker?
Definitely.
Yeah.
At the moment, like I used to work in hospitality as well for a very long time, like 15 years.
You used to work. I missed that. So you used to work where?
Hospitality.
Hospitality. Okay.
So restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the moment, like that's why I got the job at the center, or like the vaccination hub.
Sure.
Because the hospitality in the industry as well, the entertainment and hospitality industry, a lot of it was wiped out. They couldn't get any customers. They had to readapt. Even if you look at food deliveries and stuff like that, they went booming. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of damage everywhere.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing about this whole thing, right? It's like, one of my friends mentioned this to me, because he's not into activism or anything like that, or let alone even speaking about this stuff, but he's an actor, performer, and we were talking about whether or not we wanted to stick our noses out, because the whole problem with the industry is that if you speak about this kind of stuff, it will affect your job prospects. There are a lot of actors, a lot of people, prominent figures that have really affected their careers by speaking out about this stuff. Like Kevin Sorbo, he's one that comes to mind. He's the guy that played Hercules. He essentially, his agent gave him the boot because he was speaking too openly about his conservative views, which are essentially just, well, we shouldn't have the government forcing us to do stuff like that. And the same applied. Like, I've heard so many actors talk about this kind of stuff, that secretly in Hollywood you have the wrong kind of opinions, and yeah, you won't get work. So that being said, people don't want to speak out about this stuff. But the point my friend was making is that by not speaking out about this stuff and not fighting for it, you're being put in this position where you may not even have a job that you can do, because the kind of work that you want to do as an entertainer, that is not considered essential work anymore. Therefore, your very livelihood is at risk in the long term. But people are only looking at this in the short term. Oh no, I don't want to speak about this because it's going to impact my paycheck. But then in the long term, you start losing your jobs. You find yourself in a situation where you can't work in the performing arts because there are no jobs. And to make things worse, you find yourself in a situation where you end up being, God forbid, a police officer. And I'm not a big fan of the police officers, particularly with what they've been doing lately, But I can so see these situations where people end up being a part of the system which is oppressing them, because they've been backed into this corner where they don't have any other alternative because they won't stand up for themselves. You know what I mean? So eventually you end up not only paying lip service to the establishment, but being a part of it, even though you didn't want to be a part of it, even though you're wanting to fight against it, but you didn't have the balls for it. Now it's like you've lost your livelihood, and now you're fueling the very system. And I find a lot, and this is just a general attitude in regards to, I think, what happens to a lot of this. I mean, the fact that I think I mentioned where our tax dollars are going towards funding, regardless of whether or not you support your pro-vaccine or anti-vax or whatever, you're effectively supporting the vaccine, whether or not you want to admit it indirectly through your taxation. You know what I mean? And whether or not you,
there's no escaping it.
Exactly. This is what is so sinister about this entire system. It's like, yeah, look, we're just not going to allow you to have an opinion, and you have a choice, but you don't really, because you're being subtly coerced. And
yeah, even if you have an opinion, you'll get shamed by community.
Yeah. Have you met that at all in terms of like people criticizing you for any of your opinions in any shape or form in any field?
Not too much. I don't. Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
Try to look at both sides.
Yeah.
I like being in the middle. Like,
sure.
I like just seeing both sides.
Yeah, one of the things that really hit me, the first time we were talking, is you have a very like laid back attitude towards things. Like very it's kind of like you can see both sides of the argument, but you're like, whatever. Yeah, if I get the jab, and whatever, I'm not phased. Yeah, so and it's kind of like
that works.
Yeah, I mean, you seem, generally unfazed. Like, is there anything? I guess the biggest concern is obviously not being able to see your family, that kind of stuff. But I suppose at worst, your attitude is, yeah, you take the shot. But I guess what I would ask is, what do you say to people that are in this position where they see? I mean, let's just assume that this is complete conspiracy theory. These people are crazy, even though, in all honesty, I'm one of them. But you have this view that it's not. Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, let's say you have this view that it's not in your best interest to go ahead with all of these medical interventions and whatnot. And you have very strong reasons, for not doing this kind of stuff, because you're concerned about what might happen to you, that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you say to people that have that kind of reservation? And I mean, I know the narrative, it's safe, but I guess if I was to steel man the position of people that are concerned about this, I mean, you're not going to pay for their, if they do suffer any injury, you're not paying for it. I mean, how do you respond to people in that situation where you're not even willing to take, and I say you're as in terms of like the government system, they're not willing to take accountability if anything happens to them. And having said that, they're still essentially coercing them. I mean, for lack of a better word, there's no other way to call it. It's the textbook definition. You can't leave the country. You can't do things that are your natural rights, unless, of course, you go and do this. So, yeah, what do you say to someone like that? And I guess it's somewhat rhetorical, but
so can you break it down in like this?
Yeah, I was just saying. I mean,
that's cut out like a few times.
Sure, man. The reservation that a lot of people have. Because I mean, I was kind of contrasting to someone like yourself that has this laid back attitude, yeah, chisara. Like I can see whereas you fundamentally want people to have choice, but you're not too phased how this goes either way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the people that are really, really opposed to this in terms of like being concerned about what might happen to them. And I guess there's no real, in my mind, there's no real clear answer to people like this other than their choice. But yeah, like what are your thoughts on how you deal with the people that have those reservations?
Sorry, I'm just gonna try what.
I'm just saying, like, it's pretty much just rhetorical, but I guess I guess I'm just talking about. I guess you can understand the reservations people have about not wanting to go ahead with all of this kind of stuff, And when someone's in the position where they're so concerned, it's easy to say, oh, it's fine. But the reality is, I mean, we're not really giving them any recourse if something does happen to them. But of course, once again, everything is safe. Everything is fine, But has anyone come to you in terms of like expressing reservations about getting this thing? The people that are called up, like, have you had? Are there any instances where people have expressed their reservations about what might happen to them in the worst scenario? Because obviously we've heard of the blood clots and so forth in the mainstream news.
Mm-mm. Yeah, a lot of people that call up, well, it's about, yeah, not too many, but people do call up and ask, hey, is this, which one's the best for me and stuff like that. And I think people are scared, like you said, they don't know what exactly is in it. They don't know how the effects are going to be. So a lot of, yeah, even though you're doing bookings, a lot of times it feels like you're a counselor when you're talking to these people, to the people, because they're freaking out as much as everyone else.
Mm.
Like the people getting the vaccination, some people are getting it because they're scared.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've heard all these conspiracy theories from their friends, right? So they're probably even more concerned, right?
Yeah.
Because this is why this stuff has been censored. We can't have these people worrying about the conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
Oh man.
exactly.
And to make things worse, I mean, I think you told me this. Like a lot of these people have been locked down for so long, they just need someone to talk to. So all the times they're just calling, right? Just to have someone to talk to over the phone.
Yeah, this one customer, client, whatever you want to call it, that I had. I think normally on average you kind of stick to like an 8 minute max, or I do, just trying to get the person their service, give them all the information that they need, and then just don't make it a hassle for them. But this one guy, I think I was on the phone for an hour because I could just tell that this guy just needed to talk to somebody. Um, so yeah, but it was maybe even an hour and a half where this guy just wanted to talk, and I didn't say a word. I just could hear he lived by himself with his dog because he talked about his dog and how wonderful his dog is, and then he kind of talked to about everything that led up before COVID and after COVID, and you can just tell, yeah, some people they're scared. There's multiple people where they've been stuck in a house for months and they don't want to leave it until they get the shot because they're scared. They just want to talk to somebody.
Sure, that's perfectly understandable. Do you guys get much training before you take on these roles? I mean, essentially you're acting as a counselor, and you're also in some capacity acting like a scientist. Like people have all these concerns. What's in this vaccine? I've heard there are all these things. What can you? Yeah, I'm gonna have to refer you to your GP, mate. It's like, what do these guys train you up on?
Because most of it's from home at the moment. I've worked at a company that's similar dealing with tax and stuff like that, and that was all in house. But then the company had to take everything to the house because people were bringing the infection to the company, so they had to close the doors and everything. So they realized it's more efficient to work from home. So that made training a lot harder, and I feel like there is a lot of people. It's hard for them to keep up with the training because it is like every 2 days you get the information, and sometimes they'll completely change. Do I have to send the people here, or do I have to help them, or what's going on?
Mm.
So with the training, especially for the bookings, I think the trainers and the people need to be patient and cool because these are just standard people looking for jobs, trying to, yeah, just trying to make an income, especially now that everything's closed, but everything is being closed. But yeah, it does feel a bit rushed on average. If you're one-on-one facing somebody and you're training with them, it's much more easier to explain this is what you do it, and they can physically see what you're doing wrong and help you from there. But with the training for this, they're trying to help you as much as you can, but a lot of it's good luck, push you into the
Sure.
deep end kind of thing. But they have been if you do mess up something, they do try to walk you through it because I think even the company realizes training people like this isn't very efficient.
Sure.
Just like you have one-on-one conversations like we're having now through video, but it's not the same as just somebody being like, oh, this is what you need to do here and physically pointing it out.
Mm.
So I think with the training and just getting everyone on the same standard and giving the same quality service, seems like it's been really tough for them, especially because of the ever-evolving situation that they're in.
No doubt. I've worked in a call center a few times as well, and there's always an emphasis on not saying too much particularly if you're not sure. So I can definitely understand the mindset of, I refer this to your GP because the last thing you want to do is to give the wrong kind of information, right? Yeah, that's why I can imagine that whereas they do have concerns, questions, and what's in this thing, what's in this vaccine. Yeah, it's like you. And I do this as well. The last thing I want to do is get like, even with this video, it's like, oh, well, I'm about 99% sure of this, but don't want to take that 1% chance because if I'm wrong, I'll get in trouble, another strike all over. So it's like, there's so much that you can't say. And I feel like a lot of the times people are essentially just given a very simplified answer in regards to what's going on. Because one, you don't want to have people overly concern themselves. Because I think from a governmental mental standpoint, got to get that's the narrative, right? Got to get everyone on this thing, right? And then, yeah. So it's to me because the biggest issue right now is informed consent. Because the greatest issue is the fact that we don't even have actual like consent. People aren't being given the choice; they're being restricted. Everyone says that, oh, you have a choice, but it's textbook coercion and the fact that we're being restricted our rights. You know, I mean, if you want to say it's a choice, it's fair enough. You can say that, but essentially can't leave the country, can't leave the state, that kind of stuff. But the issue is the informed consent, like, and it's more of a subjective thing because how much information do you need to know in order to make an informed decision? Because it's like, is there like the amount of people that really know everything in regards to the efficacy and so forth in regards to, you know, whatever it might be, whatever drug, are probably going to be very few because of this hierarchical system. Like someone like yourself is not going to have the medical information. You're booking appointments. Even a lot of these politicians, I've heard them give like information that contradicts the CDC, you know what I mean? Or the World Health Organization. They're in positions where they don't have all the information, and nonetheless, they're giving information to people in order for them to make informed consent. Now, how informed does someone need to be in order to make a decision for themselves? And it seems, in regards to this situation here, that the threshold of informed consent does not seem to be at the level that we see with other situations. I say this in the brevity we've seen of this thing being rolled out. I say this in terms of the discussion that is able to take place. I mean, typically when it comes to this topic, you'll at least have it some kind of debate, and you'll have the crazy conspiracy theorists like yours truly telling people that, you know, they don't know the statistics, blah, 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 but you'll be able to have that conversation. Right now, like seriously, if I put this up on, I wouldn't risk putting this up on my main, I'll put this up on YouTube, but bro, I got to be honest with you, man. Like even just questioning some of the stuff here, like I can't be certain if it's going to be allowed, because even the very act of, it seems, questioning certain things at times now is yeah, it's definitely something that's going to put you at risk. So yeah, man, it's a crazy world we're in. But I guess just bringing this back to you, man. I mean, what are some things you've learned from working in the center that you're at? And I guess are there any insights that you want to give us? Anything I haven't kind of mentioned?
Not that I can think of. Sorry.
What are the general people that are asking about these things? I mean, obviously you're seeing older people, but what's the general demeanor and like makeup of someone that calls up for?
I've been surprised lately. Most of the people willing to get. I had one client call up, and he was around my age, but he wanted the AstraZeneca just because he wanted it. And I was like, talk to your GP, like, because he can get it, but he has to jump through a few hoops if he really wants it, and they make sure that it's his decision. So what I've noticed recently is the older generation is more concerned than the people calling up now, the younger people. So they ask more questions about which one they should take, and they'll talk about their GP, where a lot of younger people surprisingly are just kind of being like, oh, just give me this, I'm in a hurry. It's just like a thing they need to do for the day and then move on.
Probably because they want to travel. It's probably
they want to travel, and they're just like, oh, whatever, we'll just get it and move on. This is just
yeah.
And then it's surprising, the older generation who's more scared for life because it does impact them more. They're actually asking a lot more questions.
Sure, that's a really powerful thing to take from this.
At the start of it was the opposite. Originally, it was the elder were more inclined to get it, where the younger people were like, hey, hold up, we're not used to this kind of vibe. But I've definitely seen a shift in the last year and a half.
Yeah,
where the younger community is definitely more keen to get it.
Well, from my experience, the younger generation are typically getting it because everyone I've spoken to that is, essentially our age, they're getting things not because they're concerned about their health. Of course, they should be, but they're getting this thing because unless, of course, they do, they can't travel. They won't be able to see their parents. They won't be able to do X and Y. They won't be able to go do this role. And that, to me, I mean, this is just my own personal flavor, but this is purely from like a lawful standpoint. That's something you absolutely should not be able to do within a Western civilization. Like what we're implementing now even within the Constitution, like we've seen all of these changes take place, this sinister, underhanded attempt of the government to try to restrict individual rights in the interest of protecting everyone, which typically the Constitution had restrictions to not allow the government to do this kind of stuff, you know? But now they've circumvented this stuff by like what ScoMo is doing at the moment is saying, oh, the states can make laws to have mandatory vaccines, but, you know, I can't do this. But he's essentially having backdoor deals with the state to try to allow them to implement this stuff. But fundamentally, we're put in this situation where you have to get this thing, otherwise you can't live your life, you know? So I think that would be my opinion as to why the younger generation are more like, oh, yeah, let me just book an appointment. But the older generation, the ones that are actually a bit more concerned, maybe this is a good idea for me, they're like, oh, let me ask you a few more questions. And then we're actually seeing people being essentially bribed with donuts. And
even in America, they were giving out joints to the young. So if anybody came in, they were giving joints at certain places.
Yeah, that is appalling. Like, if some drug, like, can you imagine what it would be like if, let's say, a cigarette company essentially was saying that we were going to give kids ice cream if they take their cigarettes? Of course, there's no comparison to vaccines. Yeah. It's good for you, right? But I was always warned to be weary of experimental drugs in my youth. And, you know, that's just, my parents need to tell me not to take it. I mean, that's just the kind of person I am. I'm not putting anything in my body unless I know what it is. But now it's like we're having governments force these drugs on us because it's the right thing to do. So it's a big turn of events, you know? And I mean, I only hope people like yourself, people like us, you know, that actually want to continue doing what we love doing. I mean, you obviously direct, you make beats. I mean, that's a whole area that we haven't even gone into. Yeah, it's compromising your ability to do that because no doubt, like, I'm sure you've been busy making the beats because you have more home time, but you kind of need to collect. Not everything can be done over the internet, right? Like you mentioned that you can, I mean, maybe Zoom calls are appropriate for certain things, but there is like a human element sometimes. Like when I'm in the room with different musicians and, you know, different people, like you get into this, like this energetic discourse where you're able to kind of vibe off each other and create stuff. And I haven't tried creating music online in like a jam, you know, like some kind of Zoom jam session, but I kind of feel it wouldn't have the same effect. I've tried doing it over the phone, even singing, and there was like a micro delay and it didn't work. Like you need to be around people. So it's like,
it's like I was saying with the meeting, I had to have a pre-production meeting, but
yeah.
There's only so much you can relate through talking one-on-one like this, where if we can catch up and have the cameras in our hands and work out, okay, this is how we want to shoot it. It's just so much easier. It's very limiting being like, okay, how do you reckon we should film this thing, but I can't show you because
when you actually film your music videos, I mean, that's obviously collaborative effort. It's not you that's just coming up with the idea, right? I mean, last time when I did mine, I was the director. Granted, I had a film guy like yourself that was doing it. Like I was orchestrating everything, you know, but I was still having to like collaborate with the other artists and whatnot. How much of, like, I'm guessing when you work on a music video or something like that, it's a massive collaborative effort, and you need to spend, like artists, you know how picky we are. We have to go back and forth getting things right, going back and forth trying to get the right, everything all kind of sorted out. So, what was that like? I mean, you kind of alluded to the difficulties there already, but what was the biggest hurdle in some of the things that you typically collaborate with in the music video that you couldn't do over the phone call?
Yeah, just how quick it is if you're in person. Because, like I said, you can just kind of be like, oh, here you go. Here's the photo I took, or this is the vibe I got. But now it's like, okay, just give me a minute. I'll find the link to send you what I want.
Sure.
It's kind of like make communication less personal and really hard to achieve, more efficient because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So definitely, man. It's like we've had multiple music videos delayed because we're ready to shoot, but we need to catch up to get that to refine that last bit of it. But you need to do that in person. There's no way you can do it through video or just through a call.
Yeah. I feel like the kind of work that we do, the performing arts, entertainment, that's something that's not conducive to the whole kind of like tech kind of Zoom call thing, where there are certain things that you need human interaction. Like I've actually seen gigs being done recently where people are in bubbles and people are all kind of like socially distancing, and I'm like, what? Like, did you guys get the whole like you're supposed to be moshing and kind of like, fucking just having bodily fluids splash everywhere. That's the whole purpose of a live gig. It's not this, oh, I don't want to touch you. It's like, fuck, I love the idea of people just
Everyone
going,
sitting down, just clapping.
absolutely. I mean, the one area of live concerts that I typically frown upon, but I actually like in this context is, yeah, you need drugs, you need sex, you need crazy kind of like inappropriate behavior to have like a concert where people really feel alive, I mean, typically, right? But now it's like, oh, well, strangely enough, we are actually allowing drugs. In fact, we're definitely encouraging the drugs before you can enter this venue, but we're not going to allow any of the like the integral human aspect of what makes a gig, like touching
energy.
yeah, and you got a social distance, and yeah, you it's just, I mean, come on, man, come on. I mean, is this what we have in store for the future? It's like, I want to collaborate with you, Kill Cutter, and yeah, like there's no, we just go back and forth. We never meet up. We never have a live jam, or if we do, I have to be like 6 feet away from you or some shit like that. I feel like music is an expression of life. Like it's a humanitarian art form. It requires human interaction. Like the idea of divorcing the human element from it and bringing it into this zeros and ones is something that is so antithetical to music and the performing arts, and that even applies to production, direction, being a director. I'd hate to have direction, like having a director that never comes to set and is just calling you all the time. And
Just Zoom call, somebody holds the phone.
yeah, man, that's crazy. But I feel like technology is moving more along that. I recently saw this technology that's able to create a holographic booth where they can present an image of someone, even though they're like ages away, and it looks almost as if you're interacting them. So you've seen these sci-fi movies, right, where you're interacting with someone, and pretty soon that's going to replace everything. Like there won't be any need for us to have any physical contact. Will be frowned upon. It's like, what, you think, what, you're one of those old school people that believes that you should have like physical contact? Oh, and you
actually went to the event?
Of course, of course, not virtual. Have you seen that movie Demolition Man?
Oh, yeah, years ago.
Bro, it's a class. There's this scene on that where, like, I love it, where basically this girl asks the main character like into his house, and like this guy's like thinking, oh, I'm gonna get lucky, freaking awesome, and like this girl's asking him if he wants to have sex, right? But sex in the future is this, you put on these headsets and you basically just mesh with your mind, but there's no bodily contact whatsoever because of the Rona. And I remember just cracking myself in hysterics watching that scene. But I really think that is going to be something that we're going to be looking at if things head off in the direction they are.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Even like in Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner. Have you seen the new one?
I have.
How the main character has a connection to pretty much an AI. Like there's no physical connection. And the only way to get that is to kind of simulate it through someone else, because this person doesn't exist as an AI, and we kind of are heading that way. So it should be interesting because we do need that physical and the same. But there's another movie as well. I think Scarlett Johansson's the voice. I haven't watched it yet, and it's about a guy falling in love with an AI purely through the voice.
Yeah. I know the one, man, and like I don't want to spoil anything, but I am considering I'm a conspiracy spoiler. Spoiler alert, people. Yeah, basically, it kind of just shows the fucked up nature of AI, man. Like in the end has this really sinister twist, and I'm like, oh fuck. But bro, I think we're headed towards this. Like, there is so much that I could delve into, like a tangent on regards to AI. The fact that I really like, I watched a clip of a sci-fi cartoon, I think was done in the noughties or something like that, right? That basically mapped out, and this is all just fantasy. This has no reference to anything that's going on now, of course, right? But basically, the government had created this vaccine, and there was a serious virus going on, and essentially everyone was forced to take this thing. But yeah, there was basically a sinister plot, and the vaccine essentially, like, it had some ability to change physical biology to artificial biology. So basically just transformed everyone. And it also had some kind of like weird error kind of thing where it was behaving in a way it wasn't supposed to. And bottom line is it was like the most Frankensteinian shit ever. But in terms of like the way things were rolling out politically, I was like, oh man. But of course, that's just completely outside of the realm of like conspiracy theory. It has nothing to do with what could possibly happen in our reality. But bro, Katta, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. We've hit an hour, and it's been a lot of fun, kind of just talking to you about what's going on in the realm of these jab bookings, bro. Thanks for the insights, and
That's all right.
yeah, thanks for your perspectives on just the whole work that you're doing. I have no doubt a lot of people are going to get something out of this. In regards to getting in touch with you, man, because I know you are a legit director. If people want to, because there are a lot of artists, no doubt, particularly in this day and age where it's like, what else are you going to do besides picking up your guitar, man, and jamming away? People want to make music videos. If people want to get in touch with you, if they perhaps want to have you direct some music video, or perhaps they have an idea for a movie or something like that, what's the best place to get a hold of you for all your work?
Probably my Instagram. I really need to update my Instagram, but that's where I do a lot of work, because you can see what their art is, and you can see what my art is. Yeah, pretty much Instagram. I feel like Facebook.
Oh, good, man. I'll put the links down below. Katta, yeah?
Katta. Yeah, just Instagram, Katta.
Love
You
it.
should be able to find me.
Fantastic. Well, bro, I shall be sure to put down your deets. And yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast, bro. Bro, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, man. I really enjoyed, bro, meeting you, man. You know, you're a cool dude to talk to, man. You're very easygoing, and it's great to have you talk, yeah, openly about this kind of stuff, man. Because a lot of people are like, "What is going on with these bookings? What is, you know?" So, thank you once again. You are a legend, brother. You are a cool mofo, and I appreciate the frack out of you. Peace out.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I'll be in touch. All right. We got to link up and do something, man. Because I got some
Definitely.
beats. You know? Yeah, well, we got to do something, brother. In the flesh, not in this kind of like, you know, virtual reality nonsense as well.
Definitely.
All right. Signing out, Katta. Peace out.
Have a
brother.
good one. Bless. Have a good one.
We'll do it.
You won't work it, don't make the rest, you won't make it. I don't even care.